Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be here tonight. I'm Bryan Bowman, and I'm FCNL's Program Assistant for Middle East Policy. I graduated from UMass Amherst in 2018, and I had the great fortune of getting an internship and later a job in DC at an international news publication called the Globe Post. If you think you might have heard of the Globe Post, chances are you probably have not. It's not the New York Times or Politico, but I was ecstatic to have any opportunity in journalism at all. And on top of that, there were some great advantages to working there. Because the newsroom was so small, I had opportunities that other 22-year-old reporters at more prestigious outlets did not. I attended press conferences and asked questions at the State Department and the Pentagon and the International Monetary Fund. I sat across desks from congressmen and asked questions of generals. And on quite a few occasions, I went to the White House and saw the president. I stood in the frenzied scrums as reporters yelled questions at him over the loud drone of the presidential helicopter. I stood in the Rose Garden and saw foreign leaders peering over their shoulders to try to catch a glimpse of the Oval Office through the window. I rubbed shoulders with many of the characters that you see on the nightly news, villains and heroes alike. And for 2 years, I had a front row seat to history. Well, maybe not the front row, but I was there in the background, soaking it all in. Much more importantly, though, working at a small news publication came with the advantage of having a remarkable amount of editorial freedom. I got to interview the people that I found interesting and write about the issues that I cared about, the very issues that got me into journalism in the first place. I made it a mission of mine to use my very limited platform to elevate the voices of the people who were doing the work of challenging the Washington foreign policy consensus. And through that work, I was quickly introduced to FCNL and ultimately to Hassan El-Tayeb, who is now my boss. Hassan and I first met at a coffee shop in DC. We talked about Yemen and the horrific war there and what could be done to put an end to America's complicity in it. And we talked about our shared vision for the future of American foreign policy. When I left that coffee shop, I felt rejuvenated and inspired to be around people who cared deeply about the same issues that I cared about and were committed to doing something about them. And I remember thinking, man, I would absolutely love to do what he does for a living. In the months that followed, I continued writing about U.S. policy in Yemen, Iran, Syria, Israel, Palestine, and Latin America from a progressive perspective. And I'd call Hassan from time to time looking for quotes or asking questions about developments. Inspired in large part by Hassan, I began to think more seriously about trying to transition into advocacy work. And there were two moments in particular that I think really stand out that really motivated me to seek an opportunity in this field. Last year, I joined a small group of other reporters at a press briefing at Representative Ro Khanna's office. Along with Bernie Sanders, he had co-sponsored the historic War Powers Resolution to put an end to U.S. participation in Yemen that was passed by Congress in April of 2019. That was the first time Congress had ever invoked the War Powers Act of 1973 to end American involvement in a war. And though that resolution was ultimately vetoed by President Trump, Congress had clearly expressed its disapproval of the war in a bipartisan way. And there continued to be a lot of momentum on the Hill on this issue. So I asked Representative Khanna what he attributed this momentum to, and he cited FCNL by name, saying that they never would have passed that War Powers Resolution without them and their partner organizations. And until then, I don't think I had grasped the real tangible impact that advocacy organizations like ours can have, or the central role that they can play in passing legislation. Around that same time, I also interviewed a spokesperson for the United Nations World Food Program about the increasingly dire situation on the ground in Yemen. The country was on the verge of famine, she told me, and the violence will have to stop, she said. Unless it does, this country will become the country of living ghosts. After the interview, she sent me a reel of photos. The images were devastating. I had seen similar photos before, but on this particular night, for whatever reason, I felt the full weight of what I was seeing. Here were children, some as young as infants, flesh and bones, withering from the earth. And I wept, and I was deeply, deeply ashamed of my country for contributing to this. And in that moment, I understood more clearly than ever that our policies, or the policies of our government, have real, tangible human impacts that reverberate across the world. And as a citizen in a democratic society, we have a responsibility to take ownership of those policies. And I'm immensely proud that I'm now part of an organization that is at the forefront of efforts to put an end to the madness that is America's policy in Yemen. And it's been so rewarding to work with policy experts like Hassan and in coalition with other experts, including Yemeni American experts and advocates like Aisha Juman from the Yemen Relief and Reconstruction Foundation. And I'm also so honored to work alongside all of FCNL's other wonderful lobbyists and young fellows who every day are doing the work to confront injustices in our economy, our criminal justice system, our immigration system, our healthcare system, our foreign policy, and our environment. I genuinely believe that as bleak and as uncertain as this current moment may seem, that the future is ours, and that my generation will make the world that we seek a reality one day, sooner or later. Thank you.